Welcome to Live and Loud, Mr. Bruce Kulick, and what a great pleasure it is to have you on the programme. Ladies and gentlemen,
I love the all things British. Okay.
Well, it seems to be that us in the UK seem to love all things American, especially when it comes to rock music.
But you got to remember, and I'm sitting here in my living room looking at a British flag on a nice pillow that I was able to get here in LA.
Oh, you can't argue with that.
But if it wasn't for the British invasion of from the Beatles to Cream, Led Zeppelin, and even dear old Jimi Hendrix had to go to England to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just have so much passion for for a lot of the British bands, and I know that even though America influenced many of them, but that whole golden era of guitar and rock music is so valid now, and I just that's what got me into what I do, and I'm so grateful for it. And I even had my engagement with Lisa, who I married in January in London.
Really?
We went for a holiday over Christmas the year before.
Right.
And I always just feel a connection to the UK. So,
is that what inspired you to pick up the guitar in the first place, the British invasion bands?
Well, yeah, the Beatles. I mean, my brother, who's older than I, was playing some guitar before the Beatles hit, because a cousin, there's always been some music in the family.
Yeah.
A cousin was playing more like a classical guitar, more like folk kind of stuff,
Okay.
And the next thing you know, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm one of the, I don't know, what did they say? It's like 70 million people saw it or something,
Yeah.
And I just knew right then, whatever that was amazing. And I already think I was curious about guitar, but it certainly encouraged me to be more curious. And I was just fortunate that I had an innate ability for music, and that it seemed to complement, the guitar well. There are some famous, drummers that they first were playing a different instrument, but then they realized, drums is the right instrument.
Yeah.
But for me, it was always guitar, and I loved, all things about learning and playing, and and here I am. I've been touring so long, it's crazy. To give you a quick rundown, because it's an interesting resume.
Yeah,
actually.
It is.
First, of course, I played, locally with other people from my neighborhood. And in fact, I just found out about a month ago from a drummer that I lived near that we had like a fun band that I didn't even remember the band, the name of the very first band that I did some shows with, and it was called Sheriff. No idea why,
Okay.
But we're talking 1971. That's really early.
Yeah, it is early.
And I was able to get some photos from him. Not really anything good band. It was more like going camping, with a few of the guys that were in the band and having a good time, and just look silly party pictures and stuff like that. There were only 2 gig pictures. There were a few more of him, the drums, because it was probably his girlfriend that was taking the pictures. But I was still really happy to see these photos.
Right.
I do collect a lot of me, but so I did the usual, whoever was in your neighborhood play with a band, and then that went from playing in like a top 40 group that wound up going on the road. One of the guys that worked with that group wound up meeting up with an agent who was backing some people that had hit singles.
Okay.
Like, not a lot of people know that I did a tour. My first official tour was really backing up this guy George McRae, who had a hit called "Rock You Baby."
Yeah, "Rock You Baby." That was a big hit.
And there I went to Europe for like nearly 3 months.
Well,
we played small venues to him getting like the equivalent of a Grammy in Germany. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
didn't you also play for Andrea True Connection for a little while?
Right, and then the same manager guy that worked with him worked with her.
Right.
And there we were touring in Italy and America, and even my brother did some of those gigs. And it was my brother did the stuff with George McRae, not Andrea.
Right.
But still, and I've been reaching out to some of those guys that I played with, looking for more photos and stuff, So, and as much as those weren't rock gigs, what they did want was a little bit of that. I could play. I always like to think of myself as a versatile guitar player. So.
Yeah.
It even though my heart was more with like Led Zeppelin, I could still play the disco stuff. You got to remember Jeff Beck was like experimenting a lot in fusion and sometimes the we would like warm up the crowd and we'd play like something from Blow by Blow from Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So there's my rock guitar thing, you know, even though it was more of a R&B or a disco group that I'm backing. You know, we even had dancers and sometimes horn players, you know. But from that, my brother realized that, you know, Bruce was getting a lot of experience, and he already had, I think he already met Alice Cooper and toured and did a tour with Alice.
Yeah.
And, when Steve Hunter didn't go. So, and that's when Meatloaf actually was auditioning people, and my brother and I got so that was my first, if you can call Meatloaf rock and roll, which it certainly is more so than more.
Yeah.
So, that was my first official kind of like rock tour. And, you know, we went from, you know, a real struggle in the very beginning to selling out and being huge. In fact, Meatloaf is still one of the very, very big in England. It's top like 1 or 2 albums there, you know,
he's always on
of all time. It's great.
He's always on our TV as well for one reason or another. He manages to get himself on TV.
I know my brother saw his show in Vegas. I hadn't yet, but and what's exciting about that is that the Bat Out of Hell CD that is mostly all over the shelves has 2 live tracks, and that's my brother and I.
Yeah.
I'm on the left, and my brother's on the right.
Let's just tell everybody who your brother is at this point, because there may be
Bob.
You're Bob.
Name, Bob Kulick.
There might be 1 or 2 people out there who've not heard of him, but I can't imagine who they might be. I mean, I remember. I think Bob, your brother, is probably one of your greatest champions, and I think I remember an interview where Paul Stanley was heard to say, Bob Kulick has been saying, "My brother should be in the band. My brother should be in Kiss."
Yes. And you know, again, here I am, like kind of climbing my way up the ladder, and the Meatloaf thing was a good experience, even though it was very trying, because Meatloaf was out of his mind then. He was definitely crazy. And you know, when you get that massive success from going from nowhere within a year, it can affect you, you know. But Bob actually continued on with him. I made that left turn into a thing with Michael Bolton, and that was the band Blackjack.
Yeah.
And we did a couple of albums, and it was great to kind of work with Michael. I mean, he was a rock and roller then, not the, you know, the artist your mother loves, you know. But that was a good experience too. And then I did a record with Billy Squier, his first solo record, Tale of the Tape, that has a lot of cool songs on it. But it was his next record that really took off for him, you know. But then, by then, it was interesting was that I kind of passed on with Billy. Billy wanted me to go on the road with him.
Right.
And I chose, Blackjack was supposed to have some more tour support to support the second record, and we never got it. So I didn't go on tour with Billy, thinking, you know, I was going to be going on the road with Michael again.
Right.
And then I sat home on my thumb, basically up my butt, watched Billy Squier, you know, go on the road and then start a second record and become huge.
Yeah.
But that didn't work out for me. But I think if I was busy with Billy, I might not have been available for the bigger thing, which was, of course, to join Kiss.
So how did that actually happen? I mean, I know they were having problems with Vinnie Vincent at the time. They had problems with Vinnie. They were having them problems with Mark St. John.
Yeah, Mark they gave the gig to. I think it was an overreaction to Vinnie.
Right, okay.
I remember the list that the guys looked at were from Grover Jackson, who made, you know, Jackson Chevelle cars. And they just were thinking of like, oh, well, we have to have a shredder. It's 1980, you know, 384. And Vinnie was a fast player, so let's get a young hotshot kind of thing. And I remember Mark, when I saw the picture in Kerrang, which I was very obsessed with years ago.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. I remember seeing the picture of Mark and going, this is wrong. I don't know. This guy's talking about his influences being Fusion and Alan Holdsworth. No, Kiss is, you should be into Led Zeppelin and Cream and stuff. You know, this is wrong. And Mark was a really good player and very unique. But next thing you know, he gets a weird illness.
Yeah.
Paul finally, instead of calling Bob, I mean, there was always a short list of ghost guitar players, like Rick Derringer and people like that. You know, somehow through another guy, Mitch Weissman, who was in Beatlemania, was a good friend of Paul's, and he co-wrote some songs. Yeah, that was like a good independent recommendation. And I don't know why Mitch threw me in the, you know, just said to Paul, you really should, you know, maybe he saw me with Meatloaf. Who knows, you know? But all I know is the next thing I know, I get a call, and I'm going down to the studio to do like what my brother used to do, ghost guitar.
Yeah.
And I remember it was very weird. He just said to me, "Don't cut your hair," and I didn't know what that meant. Thinking, Mark didn't play the right stuff. They did that to Ace when he wasn't available, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I wasn't aware that he was having a health illness. And then they were ready to go on tour. They had their comeback with "Lick It Up" because even though "Creatures" was a great record, it didn't sell well, but "Lick It Up" did. And now they were climbing out of that kind of like awkward period where they couldn't, sell tickets and sell records.
I mean, there was a time when they couldn't get arrested in Times Square, wasn't there?
Right. Part of them taking the makeup off.
Yeah.
So they're ready to tour, and then I get this call a few months after that session that was just out of the blue. "Hey, will you come to Europe with us for a couple of weeks?" And once again, like I started this conversation saying my connection with the UK, it started in the UK, and we played, I think Brighton was the first gig.
Yeah.
And that was right when your prime minister, I think there was a bomb or something at the hotel down the block.
Absolutely, that's right.
Yeah. And, my knees were shaking, but I got through it, and instead of being 2 weeks, it was 6 weeks, and then I came home.
Yeah.
Mark was better by then, but they kind of, I think, contractually felt like they needed to give Mark a shot. So they actually let him, come on the road and watch what I was doing because I already had the home team advantage, And once they experimented with him, they realized that I was the right guy. So it was a very weird way to get the gig.
It's a very strange way to get it. But having said that, though, I mean, of all the guitar players that have come and gone, and including Ace and then Vinnie Vincent and Mark St. John, and then, of course, Tommy later on in time, you were the only one that never really caused any controversy. The fans actually accepted you really, really well.
It was natural for me to be in that band, and that's one thing. Even though I'm very comfortable not being the spaceman now, and I think Tommy does a good job of that.
Right.
But I mean, that music and working with Gene and Paul, it wasn't a very hard challenge for me. I mean, there's still a lot of pressure, of course, because I joined one of the biggest bands in the land. You know what I mean? So there was that pressure, but I have to say I was very, very fortunate, and that's why, especially lately, that controversy always gets a lot of press. But the truth is, my consistency in those 12 years and never being the one that's suing them and carrying on like a maniac or not showing up for the gig or whatever. I think it's appreciated. And then with the Hall of Fame this year being very important for Gene and Paul, especially to remind the Hall that it's about 40 years, not about the first 7 years. You know? There was a lot of love towards me, so I really felt that really well.
Was it very strange not to be up there on the stage with them? I mean, I thought that was a really strange thing to do. I mean, yes, okay, the four original guys, Ace, Gene, Paul and Peter, fine. But then you were in the band for longer than anybody else as a guitar player, and you were just as creative and part of the Kiss sound as Ace had been in the early days, and Vinnie was in his tenure. And yet for you not to be inducted as well seemed to be really odd.
Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate that, that sentiment. The truth is, the second I heard it, I kind of knew that the Hall would have a very one-sided opinion of what it should be about. Okay, I was already aware of a lot of shenanigans that they pulled with other bands.
Very
where,
true.
like, just in particular, Heart. Because of the fact that I knew some of those guys that were in Heart for the later years that had huge records, and I knew that they didn't get inducted, that they only looked at the original members,
Right.
So I kind of was already forewarned that if it ever happened, that rightly or wrongly, forgetting any of that, I didn't expect it, even though I still benefited from a lot of the controversy, if you get what I'm saying. So,
well, yes, I can see that, but
and I laid low with most of it because, to be quite honest, it was really Gene and Paul's battle. It was very ironic how, it was handled very poorly by the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You may as well have just stuck those four original guys in a room and threw a bomb in the room and ran. That's the analogy I like to think of because, instead of anybody having any, like, understanding or openness about, like, this could have been like an unplugged kumbaya kind of gig. It could have Okay?
Yeah.
But the Hall was insistent on it one way. Gene and Paul were very clear, and they looked at the prior precedents in the same way that I said, well, they screwed Hart.
Yeah.
And they also were very nice to Grateful Dead, and even a co-writer got inducted. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Who wasn't a band.
Yeah.
So, and Paul made all these points very, very well known. And the Hall has no one to account to except themselves. So that's what happens.
I watched it on YouTube later on the day, and I thought, of all the things that Gene said over the years, I thought Gene was probably the most, the kindest and the most dignified I've ever seen him.
Yeah. I mean, from the day it was announced, he was busy tweeting everybody's name, and I thanked him, and of course he wrote me right away.
Yeah.
You are a big part of this as much as anyone. You must be there.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. Now, of course, I only shared that with a couple of very close friends when it was happening because I couldn't say boo about anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in the end, what he said that day was exactly what happened. I mean, they flew me out there first class. I stayed in the same hotel as all the inductees.
Yeah.
And, of course, they wanted Tommy and Eric there. And I'm very close with those guys, so that was kind of fun. To be honest, it was a little more awkward for them than me.
That I can imagine.
Because they are in KISS. I'm not in KISS. And I felt, kind of vindicated.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, I'm a huge Ace Frehley fan. Always have been, always will be. And when Tommy put the makeup on and he put the stage gear on, for me, that was very, very strange. And I've got to be honest, for when Sonic Boom came out,
right,
I wanted that album to be horrible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It blew me away. And it was a case of, well, all right, and what are you going to do now then, clever clogs?
He's got the Ace thing down so well that even when you Hide Your Heart, and I remember I popped into rehearsal just before this Def Leppard KISS tour.
Yeah.
Because Eric had a new guitar that he wanted to show me, even though, he doesn't really play professionally or anything, but he likes to fool around on a guitar.
Why not?
And Tommy and I were chatting, and Hide Your Heart came up. He just happened to say something. And I wanted to just, his roadie all of a sudden threw a guitar on me, and I just showed him, oh, yeah, my part was down over here, and Paul's will play it up there.
Right.
But I've heard the version that they do. Instead of him playing it like me, he plays it like the way Ace would have played it.
On Trouble Walking.
Kind of like really, I don't take that as a slap in the face.
No.
But wow, I mean, everything about he's able to approach that gig for them perfectly, as if Ace still existed and was into it and motivated, and you get what
I do. Yeah, I do know exactly what you mean. I mean, the thing is, though, I mean, for the life of me, I can't imagine you as the spaceman.
And and thank you. I agree. That's the one. I have this dilemma about when I talk about missing KISS and missing being in KISS.
Right.
That's a fact, and it's not just because it's like first class and big shows. It's also because I know how to work with those guys, and I do enjoy playing guitar and playing that music.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
Would I, if someone said to me, "Oh, well, your wish is granted, but you got to be the spaceman and all," and at that point, I'd say like that's not the KISS I'd want to be in.
Right.
It isn't. Although I miss being in the band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
I know where you're coming from.
So I think you get what I'm saying, and it was much more natural for them actually to take as much as Ace, described Tommy in a very unflattering way.
It's not being kind, does he?
He wasn't the road crew, okay?
No.
This guy has been a professional musician for many years and songwriter.
Yeah.
And Ace kind of like created the situation too by being very difficult towards the end,
Yes, he's not entirely down to being easy to work with, is he?
Right. No, and if he misses being in the band, well, I can never even imagine a day in his shoes because he is such a eccentric person in my mind. Okay, but certainly, there were times when Tommy was all suited up and ready to go way before they had any intention to just not have an Ace in the band. You know what I mean? Not and that was Ace's choice. They didn't say to him, "Stay home."
No.
He just didn't show up.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
It's
very weird. Very weird.
It must be very strange to be Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley when you've got 40 years of KISS behind you. People have got a certain expectation of you.
Yeah.
And then for Ace to be late and then late and then late, you've got 20,000 people in the audience. You've got to do something.
I know. And I got to admit, I know there are times that they love, like, kind of picking on each other, although I knew it would be civil at the Hall of Fame. I knew it would be. I know that got headlines, but, it's very easy to air your gripes, and, of course, all these internet, websites, and Rolling Stone wants to pick it all up, what I mean, because it makes for good reading.
Yeah.
I used to sit back and watch, like, well, I'm not going to say anything, but if I did, I don't have anything that horrible to say, so I wouldn't get picked up the same way anyway.
No.
You got what I mean?
I do.
And because I'm not going to, like, make up a story just to get press,
No. I mean,
I stayed kind of clean. I got a nice quote about Vinnie Vincent being the Howard Hughes of Kiss. And they finally ran the article about Tommy, Eric, and I, like right before they showed it on HBO, because the other news was just so hot and heavy about the Hall, about all of them fighting and what was going to happen, and even though Ace was ready to jam and he had his Les Paul there, and then of course the whole thing was more an E Street Band celebration in New Jersey, and you know what I mean.
I do.
It never even happened. You know what I mean?
I would imagine that would appeal to Ace's sense of humour anyway.
Yeah, I guess. I don't think he was too torn up about it. I mean, with him having a record coming out this year, he's gotten a hell of a lot of press out of it, and it's motivated me. Actually, all this, Kiss trending, shall I call it?
Yeah.
To finally readdress all of my catalog of 3 solo records and get them all up on iTunes.
Well, I mean, I've
BK3 has always been up because I did a license for the rest of the world.
Right.
But I'm going to be doing the other 2 records, and those don't have any other interests with any other companies, so those I could do worldwide. So I'm looking forward to that. Both of those records, Audio Dog and Transform, are going to come this summer.
Right.
So, and then BK3 with again, a couple of bonus tracks. One of them I'm going to put on another one of my solo records so that it can be available worldwide, because I'll admit that I think, I believe me, I love that I was born and raised here and everything, but I seem to have more international fans than American fans, even though, of course, Kiss is strong in America.
Yeah.
It's just they get really crazy in all these other wonderful countries that I've been to.
I think the Europeans and the British saw you as a guitar player in your own right, not just a member of the band Kiss.
Yeah, and I like that. So maybe that's and the Brazilians. I mean, I meet young kids that obviously weren't even born when I was in the band, and they're like shaking, and they to stand next to me and ask me for an autograph. It's like, I mean, think about how incredible it is. And again, for me, it was like 12 years of being a guitar player in a band. So, and I took my job seriously. I wanted to do the best I could every day.
Yeah.
But I had no idea the kind of, shall I say, the impact that every one of those albums and tours and videos actually have continued to make on people. That I had no clue about.
I've got to be honest. I mean, are we going to see BK4?
Oh, I do want to work on new music. The whole record business and how people do music and get it out there, it's still like being it's still upside down, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
None of it is like it was. And I remember when I put out Audio Dog in about, I think it was 2000.
Right.
I had that vibe of like, because I already had that band with Karabi, Union.
Yeah, Union.
And we did a couple of great records and a live one and a DVD, and we struggled, you know what I mean? And the business was already changing then even.
Yep.
But my attitude about Audio Dog was like, oh, fine, I'll just sell it out of the trunk of my car. I don't care. I don't need a label. This is ridiculous. I could fund it myself. And, that was like, I was like, wow, I can't believe I have to resort to this, but I'm just going to, DIY. I'm just going to do that. And then I didn't realize, like 5 years later, you'd have Prince, claiming he's a slave to the label and screw them, and you know what I mean, and the rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody, you got Classic Rock Magazine putting out Slash's record. I mean, like what?
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. So everything's completely upside down. Unfortunately, some people think that music's for free.
Yes.
It kind of doesn't make you as motivated because there isn't someone saying, here's 6 figures, go in the studio. You know what I mean? And that's what always motivated people. Mm-hmm. Now, I know I could easily, do a pledge music or Kickstarter or however you want to do it and pre-sell the record basically to my fans. say, like, all I need is like, even just like 5,000 of them, and boom, I can go in a good studio and get it done. You know what I mean? And I may resort to that, but first I have to focus on. I'm trying to clean, and it's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up, to be honest, Phil. But I just wanted to digitize the rest of my work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With this bonus material, and then it was going to be time to start seriously looking at either writing first and then presenting that to the people, because I'd rather know that I have a real plan. And then I never know. I mean, BK3 was very ambitious, and it took a long time to get all those special guests and to create the songs. Do I do something similar? Do I even reach for bigger people because more people know who I am? I have a lot of challenges with that because I want to see myself keep climbing that ladder. So part of my like hesitance to go to the BK4 level is just not knowing like how to do that or exactly what I want to accomplish. But after this summer, and that's when I'm real busy with all the touring with Grand Funk,
Indeed,
is over. That's when I know I want to concentrate. Last year was also about getting ready to get married and just always, there's always things going on. I'm never worried that I'm not going to lose my creativity and not be able to do it.
I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you're back on the road again with Grand Funk on the 5th of this month, aren't you, at San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, we mostly do these fly dates, so that works really well. I mean, even though Kiss isn't on tour all the time, but when they go out, they're gonna, it's a big machine to get out there, so they'll commit to like 40 cities and do it in, 2.5 months or 2 months, and that's what they're on right now. But with us, with Grand Funk, we can gig any weekend of the year, and it's but the season usually really is June, July, August, September, and there's even dates, coming later, but it won't be as hectic as what July looks like, for example.
Have you ever thought
June just looked like? So
have you ever thought of doing anything new with Grand Funk, new recordings?
Well, we do a couple of songs that are new that we put together within the first few years when we got together. Believe it or not, 14 years ago.
Yeah,
but the band's the two original guys, Don and Mel. It's their group, you know what I mean? And even though that was discussed years ago, it's not something that there's a lot of back issues that I could never really understand because I haven't been a part of their history long enough to know why they'd rather not record, you know what I mean?
Right.
But since it's not on their wish list or desire, they know I'd be there in a heartbeat, it's not that.
Well, yeah.
And that they're happy with just doing the gigs and making people happy and helping pay for their homes, they're happy, you know what I mean? So I don't push it because it's not for me to push.
Right, I suppose, yeah, don't rock the boat if you're happy, why do it?
Right. And on top of it all, look how hard it is for me to get my ass in gear to go do another solo record of my own, you know what I mean? Who's for me to be bitching to them?
I think on BK3, I think one of the nicest surprises on the album was Hand of the King.
Right, with Nick, yeah.
How much does he sound like Gene?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was a little more bluesy than what Gene would probably allow himself to be, because Gene's always wearing, the Kiss uniform well, but and that was interesting. I was going to ask Gene about Nick, and he actually brought it up to me before I even asked him, because I think he was very clear that, his son had talent and was still kind of green. Yeah. And this would be a good experience for him. So it was fun working with him,
There is one other track of yours that I really think we should cover if we can, and that was something that very nearly almost ended your life, which was the shooting that you had a few years ago. Yeah. And the song I'll Survive. Mm-hmm. I mean, how did the shooting happen in the first place? Because that's something we didn't hear too much about over on this side of the pond. It's
funny because in Sweden they had a picture of me getting put in the ambulance. I was very flattered by the Swedes that they ran that in their, like their paper, like your son or something. Uh-huh. It was just, I know it's easy to say, that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but actually I was exactly in the right spot because as much as I took a bullet through my leg and the other one grazed my head. Think about 2 inches or that minute amount of physical change in that story, and I could be crippled or dead.
Absolutely.
So I was very lucky. It was just leaving. It was a very odd thing. There were rarely shootings on Sunset Strip, you know what I mean, where the clubs are. But I was leaving a club around 1:30 in the morning after seeing Vince Neil, my buddy Brent from Union was playing drums. And then all of a sudden I'm just hearing ricochet shots. I thought a car backfired, actually, you know. And, but then I went, ow, and then I realized, you know, that something happened. And I was just really fortunate, and I had a wonderful paramedic that as soon as they came, you know, and as much as I was kind of going into shock, you know, he said, you know, move your toes. And then my toes were moving, and he said, you're going to be fine. So this bullet went through muscle, which will always heal from the inside out. You know, they took me to Cedars-Sinai, which is an excellent hospital. And I know when I came in, there were like 8, you know, nurses, staff, and everybody waiting for me. And I couldn't, they were all very attractive too, but that's Beverly Hills, right? And I couldn't understand why. And then when the doctor that was treating I just had like a little scratch on my head from the bullet that grazed my head, which is a miracle. And I said, why were they all waiting for me? Well, we got a report that it was a head wound. You know what I mean? So, you know, they're thinking like brain matter's falling out or something, you know. So, you know, so it was like, it was all surreal. Meanwhile, you know, they sent me home by 6 in the morning. I'm back home. You know, I see scrolling on the TV. I'm on morphine, of course, and everything. But, you know, it says on CNN, you know, former Kiss guitarist shot, you know, on Sunset Boulevard, you know. And then I'm calling my parents, you know, to let them know, just in case you see this, just want you to know I'm fine. I'm home. Everything's okay. You know what I mean? It was ridiculous. The guy got 10 years in jail. He had no priors. He was just some kid that got drunk. And of course, because guns are out of control in America, he decided he got drunk at the Rainbow, and he wanted to go show the security guard that threw him out who he was. You know what I'm saying? And he shows up at the Rainbow throwing a gun around, you know, shooting, you know. I was down the block. It was just bullets being, you know, flinging through the air, kind of crazy.
All I can say is thank God we've still got you with us.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, I'll survive. I mean, to link it back to there, because all the lyrics definitely had to do with that experience. And that was actually like the first song that I wrote for BK3, so that was kind of cool. I only had the chords and a little melody and, you know, me singing, you know, the chorus kind of idea. I didn't have everything formulated, but I knew it was something important. And that track I'm real proud of. I just know it has all the elements that I imagined in my head with all the instruments and the production. I'm very, very happy with that one.
Well, Bruce, thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'll play out with I'll Survive.
Wonderful. That's a great way to say goodbye. And thanks again for having me. And again, for me, you know, I look at the UK as the top of the pops. Okay, there you go.
Thank you, sir.
Always the top, and I can't wait to get back there again soon.
We'd be more than happy to have you back on these shows.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Phil. I appreciate it.